Welcome to the Pesach Themes shir for 5786. It's for the Refuah Shalema of Moshe Shimon ben Leas Techaya HaLevi. So we start off the Seder, order from chaos. What looks scattered is often sacred. What feels random is often precise. What seems like chaos is almost always choreography. Life doesn't always make sense in the moment, but that doesn't mean it isn't making sense. That's why we call it the Seder, meaning order, since the Seder helps us put all of Jewish history into the proper perspective. Now, Kadesh, that's how the Seder begins. The night of our liberation begins with Kadesh, reminding us that true freedom isn't chaos, but order with purpose, freedom to rise above instinct and live with holiness. Unlike Kiddush, which sanctifies the day through words, Kadesh calls on us to sanctify ourselves through action and aspiration. The first cup of wine corresponds to Tzei, God taking us out from Sivlos Mitzrayim, not only from physical bondage, but also from patience with and tolerance of an unacceptable reality. God urges us to stop tolerating the world's brokenness and to demand holiness from ourselves and our surroundings. As we begin the Seder, we're challenged to live not for fleeting happiness, but for enduring holiness, to resist complacency, to refuse to settle for the status quo, and to find ultimate joy in striving toward the sacred. Now, Karpas, after beginning the Seder with Kadesh and Yachatz, moments of holiness and purification, we arrive at Karpas, a vegetable requiring the blessing Borei Peri Ha'adamah. Rav Kluger asks why, after reaching such spiritual heights, we suddenly turn to something so earthy, so low. His answer reminds us that serving Hashem isn't reserved for lofty, inspired moments. It must also happen in the Adoma times, when things feel messy, imperfect, or even disappointing. Perhaps the Seder begins in regal splendor, but then the grape juice spills, the kids argue, or attention wanes. Yet even then, says Rav Kluger, those humble, grounded moments can become our holiest ones. Karpas teaches that when life feels like it's fallen from the heights of Kadesh to the dust of Adoma, Hashem will still invites us to serve him there, for sometimes the truest sanctity is found in the midst of imperfection. Now, Yachatz. In Yachatz, we break the middle matzah to reveal the panimus, the inner experience of the impoverished. This broken piece, the prusa, embodies the fragility of one who lacks wholeness and must live off fragments. We, in breaking the matzah and setting part aside for the afikoman, do something radical. We refrain, we delay, we choose to share. Yachatz teaches that true freedom is not the power to consume, but the strength to give, to hold back, to transcend fear of scarcity. Even as we carry the pain and unrest of our present, this broken matzah reminds us that we are no longer bound by what we lack, but elevated by what we are willing to share. Now, Lachma Anya, as we move from Yachatz to the beginning of Magid, we open not in Hebrew but in Aramaic, strangely introducing the story with Lachma Anya. This is the bread of affliction. Rav Yaakov Emden teaches that this unusual opening is not a historical error, but a message for Jews in exile who wonder, if Hashem redeemed us from Egypt and promised us the land, how are we once again scattered, still surrounded by danger and uncertainty? Lachma Anya responds, even in exile we know where we are headed. In Egypt we had no map, no sense of destination, but ever since Hashem took us out, we have known the direction of redemption. When we say Hashtahacha, now we are here, but dream of Lashana Haba Eretz Israel, next year in the land of Israel, we proclaim that the story of Geula or redemption has not ended. Even in our broken and uncertain present, the path is clear, and God willing, the end of the story is already unfolding from the very beginning. Now, the Seder Mah Nishtanah. Mah Nishtanah is the highlight of the Seder. generations singing together, yet few stop to ask what it truly means. Rav Avram Shor explains that the question isn't why is tonight different, but how will you be different? The Seder isn't just a meal or tradition, it's meant to transform us, to leave us holier, freer, and more generous than when we began. That's why the Seder starts with Kan haben shoel, the child asks. Asking itself is an act of freedom, because only a free person can question, challenge, and seek meaning. Judaism treasures the question not as doubt, but as devotion, an engaged soul yearning to grow. So Mah Nishtanah is not only what is different about tonight, but what will be different about me because of tonight. That's the truest expression of Jewish freedom. Now, the 5 rabbis in Bnei Brak at their Seder. The story of the 5 rabbis in Bnei Brak is not random. It teaches that greatness is possible even when the odds seem impossible. Rav Eliashiv, as brought by Rav Druk, points out that each of these Tanaim overcame a different barrier. Rabbi Elazar had to teach himself Torah from scratch. Rabbi Yeshua struggled with crushing poverty. Rabbi Tarfon carried the burdens of wealth. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah was thrust into leadership while still very young, and Rabbi Akiva began his Torah life only at age 40. Their shared story is that none of them let their circumstances define their history. That is precisely why we read of them on Seder night. Just as the Jewish people rose from the depths of the 49 levels of impurity to receive the Torah, so too every person can rise beyond what seems to limit them. The message of the Bnei Brak Seder is clear. Never count yourself out, never give in to yish or abandonment, and never stop believing that Hashem can help you become more than you ever imagined. Now the Seder, the 4 sons. Rav Uziel Milevsky teaches that the Haggadah's order of the 4 sons hints at the danger of educational decline from one generation to the next. If a wise child asks sincere questions and is not answered properly, that disappointment can leave the next generation disconnected from Torah and mitzvahs. From there, the weakening can continue until a child no longer feels connected, no longer sees Torah as intellectually meaningful, and eventually does not even know how to begin engaging. The Haggadah therefore warns us that education is never only about the child in front of us. It is about shaping the spiritual future of the generations that follow. Our task is to answer with patience, depth, and warmth, so that curiosity grows into commitment, and commitment becomes inheritance. Now, Vehi Sha'amda, when Moshe first approaches Pharaoh, he delivers the message that Yudke Vavke sent him. Pharaoh challenges Moshe's message, exclaiming that he does not know of such a God. The Sepharno explains that Pharaoh had no concept of an eternal, omnipotent, omniscient creator, and thus denies the possibility. Moshe then pivots, declaring, "The God of the Hebrews has sent me." To this, strangely, Pharaoh has no response. Rabbeinu Bechaya explains Moshe's strategy. Perhaps you do not believe in Hashem, but even you must admit that there is something different about the Hebrews. You, Pharaoh, have done all you could do to destroy them, slavery, taxation, and genocide. Yet they are still here. You cannot explain what force is enabling their survival. That force is the God of the Hebrews. He is the eternal God that sent me. The greatest proof of the existence of Hashem is the continued existence of the Jewish people. That's the secret of Vehi Sha'amda. The promise of our survival is a testament to the truth of Hashem. Now, Tzei Ulamad. Tzei Ulamad means go out and study. And after proclaiming that in every generation our enemies rise against us and Hashem saves us, the Haggadah immediately calls us to learn more deeply what that means. We read about Lavan, who tried to destroy Yaakov not through overt hatred, but through false warmth, by luring him toward assimilation, eroding his identity, and weakening the chain of Torah from within. That danger remains painfully real. Anti-Semitism is serious and requires our attention, but assimilation and intermarriage can do even greater damage if we fail to confront them honestly. At the same time, Tzei Ulamad is also a call to study the miracles Hashem performs for us every day, the hidden salvations we might otherwise pass over too quickly. In these extraordinary times, when danger and deliverance exist side by side, the Haggadah urges us not just to move on, but to go out and learn, to notice Hashem's hand, and to respond with gratitude, vigilance, and renewed commitment to our people and our faith. Now, Pesach. Pesach is a strange name for the holiday, and a strange name for the korban, the offering. Why are we celebrating that Hashem passed over our homes? After all, none of the Makkahs, the plagues, affected the Jewish people. Why are we singling out Makkah's Bechoros, the death of the Egyptian firstborn? The Shelach HaKodesh reveals how passing over is the essence of this festival. Our ancestors in Egypt were not all that different from their pagan Egyptian taskmasters. We had serious flaws and major problems in our Emunah, our faith and morality. Nevertheless, Hashem passed over all those glaring deficiencies and chose to save us anyway. Our job on Pesach is to appreciate that kindness and to pass it on to our fellow Jews. We celebrate our God-given freedom by passing over and forgiving the flaws in others. Now, Matzah. We usually think of Matzah simply as the bread that did not have time to rise, but the sources suggest something deeper. Lachma Anya calls it the bread we ate in Egypt, and that means Matzah already belonged to our story before the rush of the Exodus began. Rabbi Eliyahu Baruch Shulman explains that the Jewish people were eating the bread of affliction the entire time in Egypt, yet it was secretly the bread of redemption all along. What looked like hardship was already carrying Geula, redemption, within it, because Hashem was unfolding the story long before anyone could see the ending. That lesson feels especially powerful in our generation, when events that first seemed catastrophic have revealed unexpected chains of salvation and historical turnaround. Matzah teaches us that faith means trusting Hashem's long arc of history, even when the present looks like lechem oni, poor man's bread, because often the redemption is already hiding inside it. Now, Maror, the bitter herbs. After Matzah comes Maror, and Rav Kook teaches that this is no contradiction to the night of freedom. It is part of the freedom. If bitterness still tastes bitter, that means you are no longer trapped in it. A slave becomes so accustomed to suffering that pain no longer registers as unusual. The very fact that we recoil from Maror shows that bitterness is not our normal condition, and that itself is a sign of liberation. At the Seder, we are asked to remember suffering without being defined by it, to recognize hardship without surrendering to it, and to see even our frustrations in perspective. Maror therefore becomes a reminder of gratitude. Our lives may include annoyances and challenges, but the fact that they feel bitter means that Hashem has given us the blessing of freedom, dignity, and the ability to taste something better. Now, inculcating Emunah. Just as food provides nourishment and medicine provides healing, so too the very act of eating matzah is an injection of Emunah, faith. It not only commemorates the faith of our ancestors who left Egypt without provisions, but it also empowers us to face and overcome personal and communal challenges. It gives us the strength to weather life's storms with Emunah, with faith in Hashem, that everything He does is for the good, even when we do not understand it. This is the lesson taught by Midrash Rabbah on the opening verse of the Shira, Oz Yoshir, which we sing daily in Pesukei de Zimra, the section of praise in our morning prayers, and read from the Torah on Shvi Shel Pesach also. According to the Seforno, this is why the seventh day of Pesach is a special Yom Tov, to commemorate the incredible miracle of the splitting of the Red Sea. The Midrash notes that Moshe began the Shira with the word Oz, the same word he used earlier to complain to Hashem. In Shemos, Moshe had said, Ume'az basi el Paro. Since I came to Paro to speak in your name, he made things worse, and you have not saved your people. The Midrash explains that Moshe was now thanking Hashem not only for the salvation, but even for the suffering that preceded it. The Torah introduces the Shira as follows. Then Moshe and Bnei Israel chose to sing this song to Hashem, and they said, Lemor, the following. What does Lemor mean? Our rabbis answer that it means to teach future generations this most important lesson, which is encapsulated by Rabbi Akiva's statement in Brachos. Kol mada ovid rachmana latav ovid. We should accustom ourselves to say that all that Hashem does is for the good. At times we might not understand it or realize it, but our Emunah Shalema, our perfect faith, urges us to weather all storms. The Brisker Rav explains, if someone falls ill and then recovers, they will surely thank Hashem for their healing, but they might still wish the illness had never happened. Moshe, however, by using the word Oz, teaches that he and the Jewish people thanked Hashem not only for taking them out of Egypt, but also for the servitude itself, for through their suffering they became the vehicle by which Hashem's greatness was revealed to the world. As the Midrash teaches, that all the waters of the world split, proclaiming to all of mankind Hashem's power and omnipotence. The Shira, the song, is not just thanks for drowning the Egyptians, it is thanks for the entire process that preceded it. The people's reward came in the merit of their faith. The miraculous salvation of Kriyas Yamsuf, which was the culmination of the Geula, the redemption for the Jewish nation, occurred based on the impetus of the people's Emunah. This is taught explicitly by Rabbeinu Bachya in his commentary at the beginning of Parshas Beshalach, where he says that the sea did not split all at once, rather they proceeded with the waters literally up to their nostrils and were motivated by their emunah to proceed further, and this is what produced the splitting of the sea. Moreover, Rabbeinu Bachya writes regarding the verse in Shemos, I shall see the blood and I shall pass over you. There shall not be a plague of destruction upon you when I strike in the land, that it was not the blood on the doorpost that protected them from any harm, but rather the Torah is teaching us that whoever had complete and total emunah and trust in God and disregarded Pharaoh's decree and publicly slaughtered the paschal lamb, the god of Egypt, was worthy of protection that night. The exodus from Egypt began with the emunah of the Jewish people. It was because of this great faith that we merited redemption. Faith is not clarity. Faith is courage. It's the courage to move forward when you don't have answers, the courage to trust when you don't have control, the courage to believe that even when you can't see His hand, He is still holding yours. That same faith carried us out of Egypt, and that same faith is carrying us now in our own generation, through fear and forward motion, through darkness and defiance, and through a sky filled with fire and a people filled with faith. The Seder night isn't just about remembering our past, it's about reclaiming our perspective. We are not a people of coincidence, we are a people of covenant. We are not abandoned to history, we are guided through it. We are not just remembering miracles, we are living them. So it was the emunah of the people that initiated the process of Geula, redemption. Through the Jewish people, though the Jewish people physically left Egypt on the 15th of Nisan, it was on the 21st, the 7th day, that their emunah enabled the splitting of the sea and the final deliverance and severance from Egypt. Just as we are instructed not to eat anything after the Afikomen, so that the taste of the Matzah remains in our mouths, so too must the lessons of the Seder remain with us long after the night ends. The Yachatz, the concluding gathering of Pesach, emphasizes the importance of Emunah. The stronger our faith, the more we merit Hashem's hashkocha, His providence. In the future, the miracles and goodness of the final redemption will be so overwhelming that all the pain of the tortuous past will feel like a distant memory. Now, memory, spirituality, and liberation. Memory and imagination are the ability to associate oneself with an event in the past, and in so doing to live again through the emotions that were felt at the time of the event. Only physically are we bound by time and space. In our minds, we can travel without limits, and the more spiritual we become and the closer we can approach the past, the more intensely we can experience its message and inspiration. Remembering is a spiritual achievement. Commenting on the verse, "And these days shall be remembered and done," in Esther, the rabbis say that as soon as those days are remembered, they are reenacted in heaven. The divine benevolence that brought the miracles in the past is wakened again by our act of recollection. This is one of the reasons why we have been enjoined to remember the liberation from Egypt in every generation and, in fact, every day. And it is why every Jew must see himself as if he had been freed from Egypt on that day. For every day he must personally go out from Egypt. That is, he must escape from the limits, temptations, and obstructions that his physical existence places in the way of his spiritual life. The counterpart of the liberation from Egypt is the liberation of the divine soul from the constraints of its physical environment. And this must be experienced every day if true freedom is to be reached. And when it is achieved, as it must be with the help of God who freed our people from Egypt, and through a life of Torah and mitzvahs, a great spiritual anguish is ended. The inner conflict between what is physical and what is divine in the Jew's nature is transcended. And then, only then, can he enjoy real freedom, the sense of serenity and harmony which is the prelude to freedom and peace in the world at large. Now, Pesach, slaves, free men, and time itself. This is one of the messages that Hashem shares with Klal Israel at the time of Yetzias Mitzrayim. The verse says, "HaChodesh hazeh lachem." This month of Nisan shall be for you the beginning of the months. It shall be for you the first of the months of the year. Why does Hashem emphasize that Nisan will be for you the first of the months of the year? The Seforno explains that Hashem was saying that from now on, after your redemption, the months will be yours to do with them as you choose. As long as you were enslaved, you were beholden to others, but now you start your existence of free choice. Freedom is certainly a privilege, but it comes with a sense of responsibility. A slave cannot set goals for himself. He cannot aspire to greatness or accomplishment. He is controlled by his master's will. But a free man can chart his own destiny. He has the power to choose whether to pursue his material desires or to live an elevated existence, whether to be satisfied with doing the minimum or to try to accomplish the most he possibly can. It's up to him to make something of himself. At the time of Yetzias Mitzrayim, Hashem exhorted Klal Israel to use their newfound freedom properly, and every year during Pesach, Zaman Cheruseinu, the festival of our freedom, we are called upon to reevaluate whether we are truly living up to that mission. Now, the importance of our Emunah. Going back to that first Pesach Seder in Egypt, why is it that they had to finish the Seder before Yachatz, midnight? It seems so strange. At that point in time, nothing had happened. Moshe won Pharaoh, and indeed the whole land of Egypt knew that Hashem on or about midnight would kill all firstborn in Egypt. Until midnight, however, nothing happened yet. So what were they celebrating? And why did they have to finish their meal before Yachatz, when Makas Bechoros, the death of the firstborn, would occur? The very powerful answer is that they were celebrating their faith, their belief that Hashem would free them at Yachatz, at midnight. Therefore, it is so exciting that annually we finish our meal by Yachatz and we eat the afikomen by Yachatz to demonstrate our belief that just as He extracted our ancestors in the merit of their Emunah, so too will He free us of our travails in accordance with our Emunah. We have literally survived as a nation because of our Emunah, our faith. Now, safeguarding our freedom. In every generation and every day, a Jew must see himself as if he had been that day liberated from Egypt. The implication is that freedom was not won once and for all. It needs constant guarding, and that every day and every environment carries its own equivalent of Egypt, a power to undermine the freedom of the Jew. Perhaps the most potent threat comes from within the individual himself. It is the conviction that certain achievements are beyond him, the strong and comfortable belief that he was not born to reach the heights of the religious life. To believe this is to set bars around oneself, to imprison oneself in an illusion. Pesach is thus an ongoing process of self-liberation, and the festival and its practices are symbols of a struggle that is constantly renewed within the Jew, to create the freedom in which to live out his eternal vocation. Now, striving for perfection. Their spiritual liberation was as equally dramatic as their physical one. They had reached the 49th stage of impurity to the point of idolatry, and then they saw God revealed in the fullness of His glory. A few weeks later, they stood at the foot of Mount Sinai at the apex of holiness and prophecy and heard God saying to each of them without any intermediary, "I am the Lord your God." From this it follows that no matter where a Jew stands, or a Jewish community stands, on the ladder to perfection, the call comes every day to remember the liberation from Egypt, to strive after freedom boldly, with an outstretched arm and with a total commitment, with great wealth, to become a kingdom of priests and a holy nation by accepting the life of Torah as in the days of your liberation from Egypt. Despair belongs to those who see with human eyes, not to those who see with the eye of faith. There must be no pause nor hesitation on this road, no resting satisfied with what has already been accomplished. One must press on unrelenting until one experiences the call, "I am the Lord thy God." Then, when Jews responded to the call of God, disregarding what seemed reasonable at the time, breaking with the values of their Egyptian environment, it transpired that the path they took was the path of true happiness, spiritually in receiving the Torah and becoming God's chosen people, materially in reaching the promised land flowing with milk and honey. It is so today and always. Through the Torah's Chaim, the law of life, and the mitzvahs, a Jew attaches himself to the creator of the world and frees himself from all natural limitations. This is the way of happiness in the spirit and the material world. And that's the end of the Pesach Shir. We'll be back next week, Bezrat Hashem, God willing, with Parshas Shemini, with the continuation of the book of Leviticus, Vayikra. And wishing you a great rest of the Pesach holiday, a Chag Sameach, Moed Misimcha, a good Moed, and Shalom until next time. All the best.